longest, but eventually surrendered. The result? A bubbling brown-grey slurry that smelled way better than it looked and tasted better than you'd expect, assuming enough salt. Spices were a luxury. Most stew got its kick from whatever was on the cook's hands or knife. If you got black pepper, you were in a fancy place. If you got chili powder, congratulations. Your sinuses were about to be cleared by force. But despite the mystery, stew was comfort food for the weary cowboy. It was hot, it was filling, and it could be stretched endlessly by just adding water. One pot might feed a dozen men, or be reheated 3 days in a row until it developed the consistency and personality of old glue. You didn't eat stew because it was delicious. You ate it because it was there, because it was warm, and because nothing else in town was edible unless you liked chewing tobacco and regret. Just remember, never ask what's in it. Because in the Wild West, ignorance wasn't just bliss, it was dinner. Not every cowboy could afford a steak, but nearly every saloon had something bread-like to soak up the stew. That something usually came in one of two forms: soft, flaky biscuits that were heavenly when fresh, or hardtack, which was basically bread's undead cousin. Let's start with the biscuits. When done right, which was rare but magical, they were warm, buttery, and flaky enough to convince a man he'd stumbled into a proper kitchen. Cooks who could make good biscuits were local legends. Some claimed their secret was lard, others swore by buttermilk. A few probably just had lucky hands and low standards. These biscuits were best served alongside beans or stew, used to mop up whatever broth hadn't burned your tongue. They were often made in cast-iron pans, baked over open flames, and served with a suspicious chunk of butter or a splash of molasses if the place was fancy. And then there was hardtack, a slab of flour and water, baked until it could survive nuclear winter. Originally made for soldiers and sailors, it found its way west thanks to one simple fact: it never went bad. It also barely qualified as food. Eating hardtack required strategy. First, you'd inspect it for weevils, which wasn't a deal-breaker, just an added crunch. Then, you'd soak it in stew, coffee, or whiskey until it softened. This could take anywhere from 10 minutes to 2 presidential terms. Even after soaking, chewing hardtack was a commitment. You didn't just eat it, you grappled with it. Dentists probably made good money off cowboys who challenged a piece and lost. But here's the thing. Both biscuits and hardtack served their purpose. They were cheap,